This brings me, I have to ask you this question before we wrap.
Oh, I know where we're going.
Are you a fire breather?
Yes.
Can you just give us a little information? How did that start? And where do you still practice?
Is that why there's a
practicing
dragon
fire
in your
breathing?
backyard? Is that why you have a dragon?
That's, it's my partner and I both have very dragon-like
Okay, all right.
expressions to ourselves. My focus on breathing fire went back to my very first year at Burning Man. My partner is not excited. She's seen it like twice and she's not excited with it.
Roman, have you burnt your lips? Have you gotten burnt doing this? That's a yes.
I mean,
There's
you
a
have to,
story
coat
for
yourself in
everything.
Vaseline before you do it.
Welcome to Beats Working, winning the game of events, where we share stories and strategies to turn any event or life moment into something unforgettable.
Events are wild, and the people who work in them are some of the most resilient humans on Earth. If you know, you know.
So come with us behind the curtain for a look at their most memorable experiences.
As they say, the show must go on, so let's get on with the show.
Welcome to another episode of Beats Working, winning the game of events. I'm super excited to introduce today's guest. I want you to meet David Roman, owner and lead guide for Henry Mural Tour Company in Seattle, Washington. Since arriving in the Emerald City in 1999, David has immersed himself in the local art scene, forging a 17-year friendship and artistic partnership with one of Seattle's most iconic figures, and that is the street artist Henry. I'm a big fan of street art in general, but also of Henry, and now also of David. With a background as a journey level carpenter, UW alum, go Dogs, and world traveler, the stories that could fill a gallery wall, David brings a rich street level knowledge and a whole lot of fun to every tour. That's right. We're talking tour guide today. His curated experience highlights Seattle's most vibrant murals and the colorful tales behind them. I'm so excited to jump into this conversation today, David.
Me too.
Yay!
Just off a tour, so I'm all primed and ready to go.
You're fresh off a tour. He's
got his pitch.
So Libby and I learned about your tour a couple years ago at the Northwest Event Show. We came across the bus in the downstairs huge exhibit area where they had.
I got to drive my bus into the convention center.
That
was
cool.
So much fun.
I bet that was really cool. You guys were not very far away from that ginormous hot air balloon, which I don't think people realize how big those things are. Just as a side note.
No.
Yeah.
And they were really cool. That guy had so many interesting stories. He was pretty cool too.
So many.
Very cool. We've talked to him as well. He hasn't been on the podcast yet, but the offer is standing. But so why don't you first tell us about your background with Henry and tell us how this tour came to be. Let's get a little bit of the backdrop.
So I moved to Seattle in 1999. And for the first 16 years, I lived in downtown Fremont, artistic hub of the whole city. Mm-hmm. And Ryan moved into the neighborhood in 2008. And we met within the first 2-3 months of him living here in Seattle. And so we quickly became friends. I've emceed and kind of helped host a whole handful of his gallery shows throughout the year. I've even got to be his carpenter at the Sasquatch Music Festival a couple times. And those were really, really great times. He's really a community-based artist. He really tries to involve as many people as possible into different things that he's doing. And, a couple years ago, he asked me to help him put together his first permanent gallery space. And we were taking over a used record store, and it was up on University Ave, and somebody in 1975 had painted the entire room peach. Ooh. And it kind of grayed and rotted. And I mean, the floor, everything. So we were just happening to, we were in there one day, changing the lights, painting, just getting everything, lifted up a little bit. And I made this totally offhanded comment of man, it'd be really cool if like your fans could go take a tour of your different murals. And he said it's something that he'd been thinking about, but I mean, he's just way too busy being Henry.
Way too busy.
So literally within like 5 minutes of me making this totally offhanded comment, he goes, well, would you want to run the tour? I was like, of course I would want to do this. What a great idea. Who came up with it? And
Who came up with this amazing idea?
What a good
genius.
idea.
and so, you know, he really helped me put the company together, has some more supported me in so many ways. He actually painted the entire bus inside and out for free.
It looks so rad.
He's hooked me up. I've gotten to do like, you know, all of his media contacts and stuff. And he's just, you know, like I said, he's been a really good friend of mine for a while. He is one of the sweetest people you will ever meet. And it's been a real joy to kind of go out and show off the city and really show off Ryan and how really sweet of a guy he is and how just a really developing creative artist he truly is.
You know, and what I love about his pieces is that they're colorful and happy and playful, and but they also totally evoke, you know, Pacific Northwest Emerald City vibes. For those of you watching on video, I do have one of his pieces on the wall behind me. I'm just lifting up my camera so you can see
I got
that.
one. That one always is on the wall behind me. The sweatshirt's kind of a hangout, but that painting's always there. It's kind of my little mascot.
And, you know, fun fact. So he was top of mind for me because earlier this year, he posted on his socials, I follow him on his socials, that he had this project in 2025 that he wanted to paint 1,000 garage doors in the year of 2025.
How could someone have that much time?
Sasquatches.
Yeah, 1,000 Sasquatches. I couldn't type in my application pick me fast enough. Like I was just like, oh, you know. So I've been very closely watching. He's somewhere between 100 and 200 right now.
I think he just finished last week was 156.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's only April 29th. Well, I guess 156. He's got to get to 1,000.
Yeah.
He's going to try. Well, I mean, part of it goes to his style of working. And unlike most artists, Henry doesn't pre-sketch out any of his murals that he works on. Mm-hmm. He'll just walk up to a wall, like maybe if he's doing a big mural for a customer, there'll be a little sketchbook and they'll kind of do a little, but when he actually gets on site, he just kind of stands there for a couple minutes and really visualizes what he's going to do. And then he just kind of starts and goes. And it's this, so he's really creative in the moment. Mm-hmm. And so like a garage door, he can do in an hour or two.
Oh my gosh.
And so what you'll notice, he actually kind of sets it up. So he kind of does neighborhoods. And so he does like, you know, 2 or 3. I mean, the way that I got my Henry mural was back in 2017, Henry was kind of making a transition between using a mix of brush and spray paint for his murals to just using spray paint. The main reason for that is when you're using brush paint, sometimes you have to wait a couple hours or an entire day for that layer to dry, before you can put your next layer on. Whereas when you're using spray paint, it's 5 minutes and you're off on your next thing. So it really helped with the immediacy of his creativity. And so in 2017, he wanted to get a bunch of like practice in really quick. So he reached out to a bunch of friends and people on Facebook and offered what he called a popper. And was just kind of like, maybe a 6 foot tall, like kind of single character. And it was just a couple $100. And he did over 100 of these in 1 month between here and Portland. Wow. So he was, obviously doing multiples a day. And that's when I got my Henry mural. And so my garage kind of sticks in the backyard. And I was expecting that I would just get like another little character, kind of like everyone else is getting. And he ended up taking up the whole side wall.
Oh, and that's so
I got
cool.
this giant purple dragon with green scales playing a guitar.
Of course you did.
That's you. I think if you got a Henry character, that's yours.
It's a character in the yard. We have barbecues with Murph. So it's just kind of the way it is.
That's his name, Murph.
His name is Murph?
Yeah, there was, it just goes to a couple of the stories that we're talking about, these friends with a family of Murphys. And even though they all have a different name, no matter what, all of their friends end up calling them Murphy. So granddad ended up becoming Murphy, dad ended up becoming Murphy, the kid ended up becoming Murphy. And so we were joking around, and my partner Harper, who has her own rock band called the Harper Conspiracy, we were joking around like, well, we'll just call him Murph. So kind of fit in with, the whole time when we were getting to hang out with Henry that day.
That really tracks though, because my husband has a friend named Mike Murphy. They all call him Murph or Murphy. They almost never call him Mike.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
And
when I reached out to Henry about this idea, this event that you and I will talk about shortly, he was like, yeah, let me introduce you to Roman. And so when you and I connected, I thought your name was going to be Roman, like your first name, and so then you were like, yeah, this is David. I'm like, who's David? And then I was like, oh,
I get that a lot from customers.
Same person.
So for me, I mean, David, especially my generation, like no one's named David anymore, but for my generation,
there's like a million.
Just Davids everywhere. I started soccer when I was 6, and there was another David who had a crazy last name. So it was like, how about we just call you Roman? And that's kind of just gone on and on throughout my life in different times. And it's, it's a much more interesting name. And so, especially when I moved to Seattle and started performing with the Cirque de Flambe and the Little Red Studio and stuff like this, it became a really nice, I'm Roman. And, it also, kind of, as a Gemini, it was like a kind of nice mental like switch going from just being like, nice hangout David to, okay, I'm performer mode. I'm being Roman now.
Your alter ego.
And the tour is pretty much like a 2.5-hour one-man play that I wrote about my friend Henry. And I get to perform it, pretty much several times a week. I'm always trying to like perfect it. And it's never going to be same twice because there's traffic. There's questions from the guests. There's all, every now and then something else pops up. So it's like this ongoing reach for like kind of perfection that I'll never get to because you'll never do it again that same way. So, which is also kind of the fun part of it is that I'm, always having to be, flexible for what's going on and what's in the moment. And there are some guests that are, boom, boom, boom. Okay, we're ready to go. And there's other times where, we get to the gallery and it's like chasing around little kids and cats. They just want to run around and see everything. And so it's, there's just this whole kind of fun process that goes along. It's not any one thing, but I really enjoy it. It's every day is super fun.
Well, that's kind of how you explain that Henry does his painting is he kind of sits and looks and then he makes it up. And so that sounds very similar to like, you probably sit and look at your bus of people and you just make it up as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever do more than one tour in a day?
Not in this traffic.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
Normally, I mean, it's, because the tours we do mostly in the morning starting at 11 a.m., even if I finished exactly and picked up another group, then that's trying to do a tour between 2 and 5 o'clock in Seattle traffic. So there's just no way you're going to do kind of like the similar thing, which is why, we're going to end up talking here in a couple of minutes about a more interesting idea that we can do in the, in the afternoons. But doing just a complete full tour, I mean, kind of reminds me of the first tour that we ever did, Henry set up so that Evening Magazine would come along. And so we, put it out. This is a 3-hour tour. Yes, everyone can do it now. Sing it out loud. Get it out of your system. Okay. Our first tour was 4.5 hours. We're like, okay, there need to cut it down. And because there's so many murals, especially in Ballard, Fremont area, that you go just a block that way and there's a mural. You go 2 blocks that way. But that just all kind of added up. And so I had to keep like piling it down so that we could actually do a 3-hour tour. So, I mean, there's plenty of like murals around I'm hoping eventually, have enough demand for getting like a second North Seattle tour. And there's obviously plenty of space for like a Georgetown, West Seattle area tour also.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of room, and he's still working. I mean, there's still like he's in the middle of the 1,000 right now, but I mean, just in general, he is constant. He's still out there. You know, he did another like 30 murals like full size murals last year. So he's, you know, consistently creating, and so there's always going to be more and more to follow around. Like I said, one of the Sasquatch murals is right on the road that the tour's on. And so he just called. He's like, "Great, hey, I did a mural for you," and it's at a friend's house, which is really great. She's kind of on this block where it's hard to figure out which house is hers.
She'll love it if you swing by.
Totally. Now it's so totally easy to find her house. It's really great. So yeah, no, I literally we go down this one road, and literally like every couple of blocks is another Henry mural, and now she's just added another one on the very top of the street. And so yeah, there's always something new to see on the Henry tour.
Libby, do you know the reference? Do you know the reference of the 3-hour tour?
Like the 3-hour tour.
Okay, I just wanted to make
Island?
you sing it. Yeah, I just wanted to make you sing it.
Oh,
That was
okay.
good. That was good. Okay, thanks.
That was a little like flat. Sorry about that. I had not warmed up yet.
I have not heard that 1,032 times yet.
Well, you know, I heard the Libby on the Label song from Libby Canned Foods. I still hear it to this day. So we've all got our own jingle.
Do you want to know what my jingle is?
Yeah, what's your jingle?
I took the words from Ice Ice Baby and I made it Bryce Bryce Baby. Dun 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 dun. Yeah, that's it. That's the whole jingle.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I can tell you're really impressed. Okay, back to your questions, Libby.
Okay,
Back to
what do
your
you
questions.
think surprises people the most about the tour?
I think just the variety of locations and styles of murals. I mean, we've even had a couple local people who were like, especially a lot of the local people that get on the tour wait till it's like someone's birthday where they have like friends coming into town. And so I especially remember this one guy, I've seen all of the Henry murals that are around. I'm like, okay, so we'll see. And I did, and there were a couple, and he was like, okay, well, I hadn't seen that.
Haven't
And
seen
he, at
them
the very
all.
beginning of the tour, he was, he was a little smug about it, but he was on the tour and was ready to go enjoy them. He was as a fan and stuff like that, but they're just everywhere, like on all sorts of odd businesses, he inspires so many people. Now, Henry has been commissioned to do over 600 murals in the Seattle King County area since 2008.
Oh, wow.
So about half of them are for businesses, half have been for residential customers. And then similarly, about half are private, and then half of them are public or easy to view, like so inside of a bar or outside someone's home. And really, Henry seems to be one of the only artists that really inspires residential customers to pay for his art and then present it out into the neighborhoods. And so there's just these, weird little pockets out and about that nobody would ever normally go by that we know where they are. Like, I can't tell you how many people are like, well, why don't you just post where all the murals are? I'm like, that's the only thing, that's my proprietary. That's the power that we have, is that we know the secret sauce, where it all comes from. And so, and then especially we get a chance to go to his gallery, which is now along the Seattle waterfront, right across from the aquarium. And like you said, when you see his Henry murals, they're all public. So they're all, meant to be really fun for kids to seniors, for everyone to really enjoy them. Well, when you get to his gallery, you get to see a really large selection of his canvas paintings. And, when you're trying to sell a canvas painting, you only need one person to love it. So he's able to really explore a lot more personal ideas. And so a lot of his canvas paintings are much more surreal, some of them more sensual, some of them more spiritual. They're just very unique. And so there's a big display there of prints of his older paintings. There's like 75 paintings hanging up on the wall. And so by taking the tour, you really do, eventually get to see how well-rounded of an artist he is. He's just not this like happy-go-lucky, shiny, bright artist. he really does explore a lot of very unique perspectives and ideas and kind of his visions of the world. And so it's really neat to get to have the whole experience. So it really is like the Henry immersive experience.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire inside of the bus is completely painted by Henry, floor, everything. Then, we see all these murals. We get to go to the gallery. It really is like really getting to get a full vision of an artist.
Mm-hmm. I'm so excited to take the tour. So excited.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of tours, do you guys want to tell us what you have cooked up here?
Well, sure. Yeah, I will. Well, how do I tell the whole story? Do I need to tell the whole story? I'm not sure.
No. I think so. Somebody came up with, gave Elise the impetus to come up with this idea. So she reached out to me and we came up with what we think is a pretty neat idea. Mm-hmm. And we had really enjoyed our interactions with each other. And we were like, screw it. Let's just do it on our own.
So I, as a lover of street art, whenever I travel, I'm always like, that is what I'm always out capturing. I'm a huge fan of Henry's work. I knew about the tour bus. I've always wanted to take it. I don't know why I haven't taken it yet.
Everyone waits there for their right specific time.
It's okay. It's just like, I'm not sure. It's just like waiting or something, like a fine wine waiting to crack it at just the right moment. And so we came up with this idea to do a happy hour. And because you haven't done any evening tours, correct? You've been doing daytime tours. So
I do the occasional like private birthday party and stuff like that.
Sure. So we came up with this idea of doing an event that is mocktails and murals, because one of my other hats that I wear when I'm not wearing my Beats working hat is my Sober Curator hat. And for those of you that have not been paying attention, there's a whole sober movement afoot, and Gen Z is drinking far, 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 far less alcohol than millennials or Gen X or boomers, like significantly so much. It's like shaking big alcohol industries. Like they're having to be like, oh, wait, what are we going to do? Now, I would argue they're probably all smoking weed. So there's that, but they're not drinking alcohol. And I'm a big fan of not drinking alcohol, as I've been not drinking alcohol for almost 2 decades. And so the idea is that we're going to do a Sober Curator tour that will be a happy hour. And so we will meet our guests outside of Mopop, which is my favorite museum on the planet, Museum of Pop Culture. We will get on the bus, all 10 of us, plus me and David, and then we will go on not a 3-hour tour,
and not a 4.5-hour tour,
and not a 4.5-hour tour. It will be more like a 90-minute tour, and we will drive through Fremont and Ballard. We will go by the gallery, because also, if I'm doing an event, besides being with people and having fun and taking pictures, which people know me for, I also love to shop. I love to shop. I never met a gift shop I didn't love. So when David said, let's stop by the new gallery, I was like, yes. And what else? And then we're ending at Flatstick Pub. And so, because Henry has done the inside decor of Flatstick Pub. And so for any of the guests that want to end their tour there, they can, because it's only a short walk, very flat, back to the Mopop area, if that's where you've left your car. Or if you want to ride back on the bus, you can, and you'll just miss out on playing mini golf at Flatstick Pub. So that's the whole package. It's a 2-hour tour. You get 2 mocktails on the bus.
2-hour tour.
Good job, Libby. Good job, Libby. Did that help David that she changed the hours? No, not so much. He still looks like he's in pain. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is better.
A little flat, but whatever.
Yeah. And so when I met David last week for the first time IRL, he was like, so how much talking do you want to do? And it's like, well, listen, I can talk. I can talk all I want, but I don't really want to talk. I'm not really a tour guide. So you talk and I'll be like the waitress handing out the ready to drink mocktails. Yep.
Seems like a great partnership.
Yeah. I'm excited. It's going to be really fun.
So the dates, I can say the dates. So, because right now we have 3 dates locked down. And then if they sell out and go as planned, which we think they will, this is something that we plan on continuing throughout the summer and into the fall. So the dates are May 22nd, which is a Thursday, from 4 to 6.
Yep.
June 5th, also a Thursday, from 4 to 6, just like a real happy hour. And then June 19th, a Thursday, from 4 to 6. So we will include the link in the show notes so you can jump on and buy your tickets to the David and Elise extravaganza of fun. And it's
Yes.
going
The
to be
Roman and Elise extravaganza.
Oh, Roman and Elise.
Yes.
I think I need a stage name now. Roman and Bryson hit the streets.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that.
This is going to be good. This is
You know,
gonna be
as you
good.
were talking about his work, I started thinking, like, how long does a mural last? Because it's taking the beating of sun and air and rain. Like, how long does a mural last before it's no longer what it was?
Well, water isn't much of an issue. Once the paint is dry, they're pretty good as far as that. The one issue could be sun. So he really does kind of try to go out of his way to not, do a mural right on the south wall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've got a couple murals that are on the tour that he painted like 2012, and you would have sworn he did it a couple weeks ago.
Really? Okay.
That's so
Do
Yeah,
any
cool.
of them ever get vandalized? That would make me very sad.
Yeah, it comes and goes, and it's just kind of part of being in a big city, but part of the process, and also part of Henry's kind of public view. He's got this public persona, and so that's keeping his murals looking good, so they're always there to make people happy. And especially, I mean, just as a business model, you can't try to talk someone into paying a couple $1,000s for a mural with the idea that a week later it could get tagged over and you're like, oh, too bad. And so, yeah, keeping up the upkeep with the murals is part of, the process. And, like I said, there have been murals that are out there since 2008. And so the fact that we've been able to see them and kind of grow with them, especially some of the murals that do get tagged every now and then, there's ones where he's actually added, every time he has to go and, fix up the tagging, he adds little details onto the murals.
Oh, that's
So they actually
cool.
kind of keep growing. So, yeah. And one of the nice things about the bus is that we're kind of an early alarm system. Because a lot of times it's just, one like little tag. But if you leave that for a couple of weeks, all of a sudden the whole thing gets. And so we see it along the way, and he goes and does a little touch up, and it's kind of good and go, and away we are. There was the first year we started the tour, we did have an issue with one or two people kind of along the downtown core who were really kind of targeting Henry's work. And I don't know, some people just had this idea that he was this, entitled white guy and hasn't worked for what, having all of his murals everywhere and stuff like that.
That's not his background.
And so the
at
couple
all.
guy that's, he had a couple murals that he had to do like the entire murals like 3 or 4 times in like a month and a half. And a lot of these taggers are all on TikTok. They all like taking videos of themselves. I mean, most of them are younger people. And so they're all trying to share how cool they are, destroying, everybody's property. And somebody got a video of Henry redoing one of his murals at like 4:30 in the morning when it was still pitch black out, because it had just been tagged again and he wanted to get it back over before people could see it again. And that video actually ended up getting passed around and be like, look, this is a really hardworking guy. He's out there doing this by himself in the middle of the night. Like, these are the type of, people we want to we want in our world. And so that really settled down a lot of the aggressive tagging that was happening on his stuff. There's still certain places that just get kind of, incidental little tagging here and there, So, but for the most part, there are murals that, there's a fish sandwich shop on 15th that the business has been closed for 5 years because they had to close during COVID, and everything still looks great. All the murals are still looking really wonderful. In fact, this last winter, Henry got a little bored, so we got some plywood and he painted a bunch of new characters and went and screwed it and covered up over the windows. Like, nobody asked him to do them. Nobody paid him to do it. He just added a bunch more art and a bunch more characters up onto the wall. And so last summer, they jackhammered out the entire sidewalk right in front of the building, right up to the building, and then poured brand new sidewalks. They're doing this whole restructuring around the Ballard Bridge. And if you've ever seen concrete pour, it is messy. It's splashy. Stuff goes everywhere. It is a filthy job. The work crew, without anybody asked them, actually went completely out of their way and completely protected the entire mural. Put up plastic and plywood, and really, so that when they were done, there wasn't a drop of concrete on any of the murals and stuff like that. They were just as nice as they were when the guys got there. So, you really do see that people on a lot of different levels really do appreciate how much work he puts into doing all of this.
Roman, you spend a lot of time like watching the city from the perch of your bus. And so you must have developed a big love for the area yourself.
Well, I had it before I started the tour. I mean, that's how I could do the tour, is that, it's amazing the possibilities of this city. The level of opportunity there is in this city if you put yourself out there. I mean, there's just so much to do and so much to get involved with. Mm-hmm. And, from going to, getting to go to the UW to, doing construction, which means I traveled around all different parts of the city for, getting to, meet just hundreds and hundreds of different artists in this city. Yeah, this was the best decision I made in my life, was moving to Seattle.
So when folks get off of the tour bus, what are you hoping they take with them? So what do you want them to be feeling? Like, how do you know if you're like, oh, I crushed that tour? Like, these people, I did the best job. That was my best talk.
Like I said, it's never gonna be. It's always gonna change. It's always different every time. But you can just tell how engaged people get. Like, especially today, I had tourists from South Carolina. They have no idea who Henry is. Like, I've never seen a single bit of his art. I've never heard of his name. And by the end of the tour, all of a sudden they're, looking at getting stuff at the gallery, and, they've taken all these photos and they're getting selfies at the Flat Stick Pub with the Henry stuff. So, what I really hope is that people just, one thing about the tour is that we really get out of downtown. Right now we get up into North Seattle. We go into all these different neighborhoods. And so we really show off a lot more of, where people in Seattle actually live and like where they go play, which I think is a lot of the tours seem to focus on like where people go to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it turns out we don't all hang out at the Space Needle.
Yeah, or the weird spheres, or we don't want to go watch people beat each other up in a stadium, And so it's really nice to kind of get out and be like, yeah, this is where the, Seattle actually is.
Well, I love that, because it's like what you've put together. It's like part art walk, part storytelling, part city pride, part feel like a local even if you're not, part live like a local if you are. Like, it's just such a cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, it really, like, it's just naturally, the way, because of just what it is, it really is like just a general expression of Seattle. Mm-hmm. Like, this is what Seattle's like. Mm-hmm. I actually have music playing on the bus the whole time, and I don't know if I'm supposed to, but I just need music around me the whole time.
Yeah.
And, so there's just, and, music is so important to Seattle. I mean, art has been important. Art has been an essential part of Seattle since before the first white guy ever even, crossed over a hill here. So it's just been like this, there's this energetic feel. And it's one of the reasons why, Fremont calls itself the center of the universe. This is just where art, really kind of vibrates with everything. So, and I also really like to talk about that, one one of the few things my stepdad, not one of the few things, but one of the first things my stepdad really kind of showed me was that art doesn't have to be your primary thing. As a kid, you always think that you get one job. You're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're a salesperson, you're a chef, and then that's it. And then when you grow up, you realize, well, yeah, there's this thing that I do to kind of make money, but then I have all this other free time that I get to choose what I do with it.
Mhm.
And that's when you can go find all these interesting things and all these really interesting people. And, I really try to, on the tour, I even, try to talk to people about, going and finding a festival that you really like and then be the volunteer at the festival. Because that's, then you make yourself available to all these unique opportunities when you actually get in the background. Like, I'd much rather stand on the backstage of a concert, doing sound than I would be, out in the audience. I just love the feel of being on stage and in the background working with people putting things on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, this brings me, I have to ask you this question before we wrap.
Oh, I know where we're going.
Are you a fire breather?
Yes.
Can you just
now? I haven't in a while, but
give us a little information. How did that start? And where do you still practice?
Is that why there's a dragon in your backyard? Is that why you have a dragon?
That's it's my partner and I both have very dragon-like expressions to ourselves. So my, I don't know if obsession, but my focus on breathing fire went back to my very first year at Burning Man. It was 1996. There were 6,500 people there. Now, the last year I went was 10 years later, and that year there were 35,000 people. And the last several years, there's been over 75,000 people. So it kind of tells you how the whole thing has grown. And so that first year I was there, we was walking around with a good friend of mine, and we came across like a rave band that was making music live out of the craziest instruments. One guy had a stand-up bass, and the E string he had out really big and wide, and he had this piece of metal that he was scraping on it. They had a piano that literally had fallen off of a bus or off the back of a truck. It was a moving truck, and they totally screwed it. And so like a third of the keys were broken off, and the guy was like playing it with his fists. And then there was this drummer doing live drumming, like 150 beats per minute. And they would play for like 15 minutes and then stop, take like a 5-minute break. And then they get everyone sit back down, and they would just start. Like, it was amazing. Nobody would say anything. All of a sudden, all the instruments would just go kicking, and they were off and running again. And there were 4 porta potties kind of pushed together. And I saw this, some people like kind of helping this guy get up there, and they passed him up all this stuff. And over the next like 2 hours, like every 20 minutes or so, he would go and blow fire. And he was good. Like, after, doing it for 20 years, this guy was good. And it was just awesome. And so, everyone's like giving him drinks and like all standing around, and he was making this whole, he just made the whole environment that much more amazing. And over the next couple years, I really didn't see any fire breathers. And so one of the points about Burning Man is that everyone contributes something to the city. Some people volunteer. Some people really spend time getting dressed up in costumes. Some people really make an environment of their campsite that people can go enjoy. Other people are bartenders. You just have your own thing. You can be a ranger, whatever it is. And so one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to share that experience of being so excited when I saw a fire breather. Like, I just had never, and although I noticed how it reacted, the other people around it were reacting to it too. So right about that time, end of the third year, I'm in Sacramento. I then moved to Seattle, and I'm trying to find someone in Seattle to try to teach me to breathe fire. Have 1 or 2 little run-ins with someone who's trying to teach it. Didn't necessarily go very well. And was living in downtown Fremont. And one night I was just doing my normal walk down along the canal. And this is way before they ever built Google and all those things. And it was just kind of open along the Fremont Canal. And I walked underneath the Fremont Bridge, and all of a sudden there were like a bunch of cars, like dozens of cars parked under there, where in the evening there's usually nothing there. And I absolutely swear, this guy comes around between a couple of cars, looks at me kind of funny, blows a ball of fire, and then turns around and walks back underneath the Ballard Bridge. And I'm just like, whoa, what the? And so I'm like, follow him. And
It's a
so
sign.
you can actually walk underneath the Ballard Bridge. Now they've closed. You used to be able to go like a block and a half underneath Fremont. Now they've kind of closed it off with some of the remodel. And so I follow him back underneath the bridge, and way back in there is the Cirque du Flambe Fire Circus having one of their big rehearsals. And I was really lucky that there happened to be a woman there who also ran a booth at the Sunday market in Fremont. And so we had kind of interacted a little bit. And so she waved me over and sat down and said, well, hey, I was like, what in the world is this? It's amazing. I mean, they're doing flaming jump ropes. There's people blowing fire. Like, it's just crazy. It's so awesome. And so she, oh yeah, hang around, watch this. And she says, well, we're actually leaving in a couple of days. We're going to go up to Edmonton to do a performance, and then we're going to drive down to Burning Man. I'm like, cool. I'll come and find you guys down at Burning Man. So we go down to Burning Man, and I think like the second night. And so we stay out really late. And I'm probably up to like 3 or 4 in the morning. And then all of a sudden at like a little after dawn, sounds like there are elephants right outside my tent. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on here? And so I go and I open, I stick my head out, and literally 20 feet away, the Cirque du Flambe is unloading their cargo truck. And so then I got to spend that whole week playing with the Cirque, and they were like, yeah, well, I'll see you when we get home. And so like it was kind of a reverse. The circus took me home. And so that was then the beginning of 5 years of performing with the Cirque du Flambe. And so we got to do all sorts of crazy things. And yeah, one of my characters was the human dragon. And yeah, that was just amazing fun. So I've kind of aged out a little of some of my things, putting paraffin lamp oil in your mouth and spitting it out, kind of a younger man's game. My partner is not excited. She's seen it like twice and she's not excited with it occasionally and stuff like that. And I have a really cool LED staff that I bought a couple years ago that I really like. That thing's really cool.
Roman, have you burnt your lips? Have you gotten burnt doing this? That's a yes.
There's a story for everything.
Vaseline before you do it?
No. So the first year that I was breathing fire, I lived in Fremont, and I was in an apartment building that had kind of like 10 little units. And there were several of us that were really good friends. We would have barbecues multiple times a week together. There was a nice courtyard for everyone to share. And so that fall, my neighbor knew that I was kind of starting to work breathing fire, and she hadn't seen it yet. And she was like, well, can we go out to Golden Gardens? Will you breathe fire for me? That's my birthday present I want. I'm like, that sounds fun. Okay, we'll go do that. And now that I'm wiser, I know that you don't go breathe fire on the beach when there's gusty winds. Didn't know this the first year I was doing it. And so like nothing too serious. Like I was fine. I'm a pretty safe guy I'm a pretty safe guy generally. I mean, I've had long hair the entire time I was a fire performer. So,
and that's impressive. You didn't singe it off. That's good. That's good
it was really good. I used to have 3 friends of mine that were all other fire breathers, and they were all either like, had shaved their heads or had mohawks. So I was always impressed with what I had. We're out and I breathe fire for her out on the beach. We have a really great time. And I wake up the next morning and my lungs are just, I don't know, just feeling a little scratchy and itchy on the inside. And so I was going to Bastille for my medical stuff at that point, which is a very naturopath place. And so I'd gone in there a couple of times. I already got some acupuncture and some other things and really, really liked it. So I went in there and scheduled a meeting, and it's also a teaching college. So the way it works is that you go in and there's students who are in their last year, and there's 2 of them, and they have the initial meet and greet, what's wrong. And then they go and talk to, one of their actual doctors and come up with a plan of what they're going to do. And they come back in and then tell you what the treatment is, and you kind of go on from there. So these 2 women in there, they're, about my age. I may be just a couple of years older than them. And, I talked to them, but, I was out at the beach last night breathing fire, and, my lungs just kind of hurt. And I was just wondering if maybe there was something you could do to kind of help. I just don't know. And so in the past, when I've done that, they go and it's like 5, maybe 8 minutes, and then they're back in and they're ready to go. Boom. Well, like, I'm sitting in this office for like 20 minutes. I'm like, man, this is kind of like, I didn't think this was that hard. I'm like starting to get a little worried. Like, am I like, did I really hurt myself or something? And then all of a sudden I end up finding out who is the director of Bastille. He's this like 75-year-old Asian guy, really nice, really sweet, very calm, quiet. He comes in and he sits down and he starts asking me, just the basic medical questions again. Okay, so you said you were out breathing fire. And so he goes, what's wrong? Okay, so you were out breathing fire at the beach last night. I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, so do you have some sort of special organ that allows you to do this? And I'm like, no, I take paraffin and a torch and I go, phew. And he goes, oh, like a circus performer. I'm like, yeah.
What did he think?
The girls thought I was freaking insane and thought that said I could just on command. They thought I was in Bastille bragging about literally being a human dragon.
Oh no, they're like, we've got a
case.
More of a
we've got a case,
issue.
yeah. And I'm a 6 foot tall guy, I'm
Man
not.
thinks he's a dragon.
You're not small.
And I'm a carpenter at that time. I'm 200 pounds and 6 foot, So he goes, oh, so sorry. And he goes and he opens the door, and there's these 2 just giant guys standing there in like security outfits,
ready to commit you.
And, oh yeah, they are. And they're like, everything's fine, our mistake. Girls, you need to come in here. And so the whole thing got settled. They gave me giant vitamin C pills.
Oh,
I did a little
gosh.
acupuncture, and a couple of days later I was fine. But I mean, and I was like, you ladies are in a very weird part of Seattle. You need to get a little bit more used to maybe people bringing you some interesting things, and just ask a couple more questions next time. So
everyone's breathing fire these days, gals. Come on.
All right, but let's be clear to our listeners, there's no fire breathing on the tour.
No, there is not.
No fire breathing on the tour.
Maybe lots of fireworks, but no fire breathing, because it really is a lot of fun. Every tour that I have done has just been absolutely fun. It's been a really great run.
Well, we can't wait to be regulars.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
For the next, month, and actually probably through the summer forever, because these tours are going to be a big hit, and they are going to be. We're going to have to keep.
Yeah, once the word gets out, this is going to it's going to be a thing.
Yep.
Okay, well, if somebody wants to find you and go on a tour or go on the Sober Curator tour, how would they do that?
It's great. You go to henry.art. It's a really nice, easy thing. There's a little thing on that says tours. If you want to type it out straight, you go henry.art/tours. Easy. And that'll take you right to our page. And you'll get to take a look at all the different options you have. That will also include our happy hour tour. And then you get to flip back over and take a look at some Henry art and get really excited about going on a tour.
Yeah. But you won't see all of it on there, so that's why you got to do the tour.
No, there is always more to see. He is a very prolific artist, and he has shared himself all over the city. So, and it's really interesting once you start getting pointed out some of them, you start to then see where they are all over the city. There's so many murals in the town, they all kind of bleed in together. But once you kind of get, acclimated to seeing a Henry mural, you really do start realizing they are everywhere. And it's so cool. I mean, I even keep running across ones that I hadn't seen before,
Well, it's kind of like when I got my gunmetal Jeep, I thought, oh, this is so original. And then like everybody drives a gunmetal Jeep. It's one of those kinds of things. Yeah. Well, we're super excited to become your sidekicks, your sidekick tour guides.
Yes.
This is going to be so much fun.
Yes. All right. Well, David, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, that is a wrap for this episode of Beats Working.
Woohoo!
Woo!
Come join the Henryverse.
Yes. Henry.art. Be there, be square. If you've got an idea for an upcoming episode or somebody that you really think we should talk to, or just want to reach out to us, just chat about art, you can email us at info@beatsworking.show. Remember, every detail matters, every moment counts, and no matter what, the show must go on.
Thanks for listening to Beats Working, Winning the Game of Events, where we explore what it takes to make moments unforgettable.
If you're leaving with a little more inspiration, a little more perspective, and a big side ache from all of the laughing at our funny jokes, then we've done our job.
Beats Working is a Work P2P production. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platforms.
Your support helps us keep the magic going.